Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome out to the garage. Beautiful fall day, and I thought I would share with you another peated Scotch. Now, this one is a blended malt from an independent bottler. This is from the Wemyss family, Wemyss group, I'm not sure. But from the Wemyss malts, this is called Spice King, and it's a blended malt. So it's all malts, but it is not disclosed, I don't think, from what specific distillery. So if you have any Scotch or some blended malt kicking around, well, I mean, blended malt would be a Scotch. So if you have any Scotch, when you pour it around, when you come back, we'll talk about this Spice King from Wemyss family.
3, 4.
Thanks for joining me. As I was trying to say, this is a blended malt, which means still all malt, but instead of coming from a single distillery, so then it would be a single malt, they've put in casks from a variety of distilleries. It is released at 46%, and it is non-chill filtered, so it's got some cred behind it. If it never says, then we assume it's colored, and there's some stories on here. Craft of 10 single malts, resulting in a blended malt noted for its sweet and spicy character. So, all right, let's talk whiskey. As I was trying to say, this is a blended malt, so it's all malts, 46%, unchill filtered from the Wemyss group. See what we get on the whiskey. Oh, it's quite sweet. It's funny, I would have said grain sweetness, but so let's go malty sweetness, cereal sweetness. Some nice fruits, some light fruits, like almost kind of pear territory. And already there's a sour or a hint of smoke or a hint of moss vegetable peat. Yep, there's got to be some peat in here. I don't know what the peat levels are, but that's what I'm getting on the nose. Let's try the palate. Sláinte. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of brininess, a little bit of cracked pepper, a little bit of, kind of a vegetable note, like that earthy peat. Yeah, kind of an earthy peat, smoldery. The sweetness and the fruit in the nose was almost completely absent in the palate for me. For me, the palate is very black pepper, anise, like a little bit of licorice. Yep, and it's coating, and then it's kind of grassy or earthy and smoldery, and sour, a little bit tannic, but definitely playing in that area. This is a very affordable blended malt in my neighborhood, and it gives me a lot of that kind of peaty hug that I get with stronger peat. I really don't think this is more than probably 10 to 12 parts per million. No, I have no idea. Just telling you what my palate picks it up as, but it definitely plays in that peated malt area. It reminds me a lot of Isle of Mist, which would have some grain in there too. In fact, if I didn't know this was only malt, I would think it has some young grain in there because there's still sort of a cereal note for me. But we know it's only malt, and it's decent. What would I value this? I've actually kind of stayed at it for a little while, and 3.25. It's just not that great. 3.5, maybe 3.5. It's not bad. And again, if you see it on a good value, as I have, it's worth picking up if you're looking for a peated malt. But I wanted to compare it to what I shared with you last weekend, which was this blended Scotch, 43% unchill filtered from the Isle of Boys, Flat Nose. I'm sure it's pronounced differently, but that's how it reads to me. This has some grain in it for sure, but it is unchill filtered, and it advertises that it has some Isle of malts in it. Okay, in this sitting, the Spice King is deeper, richer, thicker. This is sweet, and there's a little bit of strong something going on in here, like almost a little ethanol, a little marker that put me off on this comparison tasting. And I didn't get that when I was sharing with you last weekend. Let's try it on the palate. Cheers. Well, that moved through pretty quick. I should probably take another sip, well, I will in a moment. But it is much lighter. And in the palate, I would say almost a little bit more refreshing. I've got a little bit of light citrus, a little bit of cut apple, and only a little bit of peat and brine. If I'm pegging this at about 15, this is like 5. So this is probably 10, 15. This is probably 20, 25 parts per million just in this contrast. I'll give it another sip. A little more caramel notes, a little more vanilla. So this is a pretty nice sweet dram on the palate. The nose is wildly off for me today. Wildly off. Like, this is the kind of nose that punches you into a 2.5 star rating. In my books, always only my palate. Like, really, I don't know what happened. I'm into this bottle a bit, and I have noted that there are metallic notes. And I guess I'm getting some of those, but now those metallic have turned into marker ethanol nail polish notes, which I don't appreciate in whiskey of any category at any price. In this sitting, this Spice King blended malt is much deeper and richer, much more earth and peat, and certainly lives to its name in the sense of more cracked pepper. And there's an interesting note of licorice in there. Thanks for joining me out here. I've shot a couple of videos. Now I've got to go edit them up, and hopefully I'll release them over the next week. And should be a good time to read the comments. Thanks for joining me. You guys have a good week. Take care.